All right, hi guys, welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, I want to do something a bit different, and that is react to hot takes about the watch industry. I was recently scrolling on Reddit and came across the forum called r/watch hot takes, and I thought, man, a lot of these are really good, or at the very least, very controversial, and would be great to talk about here on the channel. So without further ado, I have 10 hot takes that I found from this forum that I want to react to here in today's video. But before I get started, I want to ask you all to let me know what you guys think about these hot takes in the comment section down below, and let me know if you have any hot takes of your own that you'd like to share. All right, so I have my trusty tablet here in front of me. That's what I'm going to be reading these hot takes off of, and I'll go ahead and start with number 1, which says, movement considerations are overrated. People already seem to be open to the idea that watches are jewelry. Well, I'll go one step further and say that unless the case back is clear and I can actually see something, I don't care about the movement at all. I buy a watch because it looks cool to me. I don't care about the in-house movements or whatever. I would never know the difference. If you want an accurate watch, you can buy a quartz. So this is actually a pretty interesting hot take, and I can actually understand the perspective that he has here. Clearly, this is someone who values the look of a watch and a watch being a true tool to them, a piece that is reliable, and it just doesn't really matter what's inside of it as long as the time is right and he likes how it looks on his wrist. And I can appreciate that. A lot of times I grab some of my quartz watches because I want them to be accurate and reliable, and I like the way they look, and that's a great piece for the day. But more times than not, when I'm buying a new watch, I very much care about the movement and it being technically impressive and really exciting. I would say, generally speaking, most watch enthusiasts are going to care about the movement of their watch. It's that engineering, technical aspect that is very exciting for the average watch enthusiast, including myself. I can appreciate this gentleman's perspective. Clearly, the looks and reliability of the movement and it being quartz is a really great factor for him. But for myself and for a lot of you guys out there, I'm sure the movement being technically impressive is at the top of the list of things that you look for when buying a new watch. So I appreciate his perspective. I understand it, but I would generally disagree with it. All right, so number 2 here says, Longines is by far the best value you can get from a luxury watch currently. And I would actually strongly agree with this opinion. I've been on the record saying something very similar to this hot take in one of my recent videos, and I gotta say, I just absolutely love what Longines is doing with their entire catalog. I love their newest releases as well. The 39mm Legend Diver is spectacular. The Ultra Chron is awesome. I really just think that they are killing it right now. They can't really do anything wrong. Their price point is very reasonable. And I really think their only real competitor in that sort of entry-level luxury price point around $3,000–$4,000 is really Tudor. And I like Longines' catalog a little better than Tudor. So Longines, absolutely killing it. I think this is a great hot take. All right, next up here, hot take number 3 says, sapphire crystal without AR coating is worse than mineral crystal, and I cringe every time a new watch releases with non-AR sapphire. Now, I actually kind of like this opinion. I think really just in general, the material of a crystal of a watch does not really matter as much as pure visibility, in my opinion. I think the material of the crystal is probably the lowest, if not one of the lowest pieces of information I care about when looking at a new watch. Maybe that's a hot take in and of itself, but I don't really find there to be too big of a difference between sapphire and mineral. They both have their own benefits. Obviously, a mineral crystal you can buff out. A sapphire crystal is going to be a little bit more scratch resistant, or maybe a lot more scratch resistant. But either way, I think that this opinion is a good one. I think that AR coating and really just visibility in general is the most important thing when it comes to a watch. I purchased many pieces over the years that have bad AR coating, and you just can't really appreciate that watch in the sunlight the way you'd like to. And that really does, in a way, ruin the experience of that watch. So I think this is also a pretty good opinion. All right, hot take number 4 coming up here, and it says, a luxury watch cannot be a gotta watch. And he basically goes on to say that if you can't wear your luxury watch on the London Tube, on the New York subway, and generally in more precarious situations, then it's not a great gotta watch. And I very much understand this user's perspective. Obviously, yes, if you don't feel confident wearing your luxury piece every single day, even though you kind of decided it is your everyday watch, that's not a great situation to be in. But I do think that a lot of luxury everyday pieces, like the Rolex Explorer, like a lot of IWC Pilot watches, and I'm sure there's countless other examples, I think those are pieces that really do go under the radar. The average person is not going to know what that is or why it's significant. And the people that pose a risk to your watch, thieves, for example, if they know what they're talking about, if they know about watches, they'll probably recognize a Rolex, an IWC, or your Omega or whatever, right? So I think at the end of the day, there's always a risk at someone stealing your watch or, again, posing some kind of a risk to it, no matter what it is. And I think a Gata watch usually is a watch that goes more under the radar than most. And therefore, you're probably reducing that risk of it being stolen or damaged. So I actually think this is not the best take, but I do understand his perspective. All right, next up here, hot take number 5 says, date windows ruin far too many watches. And he goes on to say that date windows ruin the symmetry of watches, and it's also more difficult or takes longer to sort of set up the time and date of your watch if you're switching watches constantly. And I would 100% agree with this hot take. I sometimes like to joke that I would be the president of the anti-date window club if such a club existed, because I very much do not like date windows on my watches. In fact, it is pretty much the #1 factor that I consider when buying a new watch. It's really just a personal preference of mine. Similar to the user who wrote this hot take, I like to swap watches fairly often, and it's just an extra step that I don't enjoy, having to change the date of my watch. But more importantly, it's that symmetry aspect. I just really, really love watches that have that perfect symmetry of having no date window. Watches like the Rolex Explorer, watches like the Omega Seamaster 1948, both of which are in my collection, are amazing to me because of that symmetry. I love it so much. And yeah, just a personal preference of mine, but I think this is a great hot take. All right, so hot take number 6 says, can we stop with the Grand Seiko is better than Rolex nonsense? Rolex is objectively better at movement precision, case design, movement architecture, movement variation, and has much better bracelets. My first reaction to reading this is that Rolex and Grand Seiko are so different as brands that it's really hard to compare them. I think when you look at Grand Seiko, if we start with them, they do a lot of different things that Rolex cannot compete with, and vice versa. Looking at Grand Seiko, I think they offer a lot of great variation in their movements. I would disagree with this user's opinion that Rolex has better variation, because with Grand Seiko, you have, of course, 9F quartz movements, spring drive movements, and their traditional automatic and manual winding movements. And Rolex doesn't really have that type of variety. And of course, Grand Seiko is known for their finishing and their amazing dials, to the point that I think Rolex cannot compete with that aspect of Grand Seiko. But with Rolex, I think their watches are very solid. I think they have more iconic designs. I think they have more common design language throughout their history. And I think their bracelets are truly better. So really, when you look at these two brands, I think that there's a lot to talk about and a lot of variance between them, a lot of difference between them. And I think you can't really say one is just objectively better than the other. I think a lot of watch enthusiasts out there have a lot of reasons to buy Rolex over Grand Seiko and Grand Seiko over Rolex. I've owned both these brands, and I think they are not overlapping competitors in a lot of different ways. They offer a lot of different things. So I would disagree with this hot take. Okay, hot take number 7 coming up here, and it says, every luxury watch should have a quick release bracelet. I'll make this one very quick. I think this is the best opinion of the day. I don't understand how we can pay $3,000, $4,000 for a watch and it not have a quick release bracelet. And I'll go one step further. I think at that price point, you need to have on-the-fly adjustment if you're buying a luxury watch with a bracelet. It's a little crazy to me that you can buy pieces that don't have these features at that price point. I think it should be a standard across the industry, and that needs to happen today. So there you go, great hot take. I think the best of the day. Okay, hot take number 8 here says, there's no such thing as a one watch collection. You just have one watch, not a collection of watches. Now, I would agree with this opinion. I think the idea of a one watch collection is just something that watch journalists, YouTubers, enthusiasts just kind of came up with to kind of hype up a great everyday watch, right? When there's a piece that is a great Gata everyday piece, we love to say it's a great one watch collection. Yes, there's really no such thing as a one watch collection. It is just one watch, but I do think it's a great way to describe a piece that is versatile and can handle everyday scenarios. So yes, a one watch collection doesn't really exist, but I do like it as a term in the industry. Okay, so hot take number 9 says, telling people wear those scratches and dents with pride is dumb. Assuming no mechanical issues, you wouldn't tell someone with a scratched and dented car, keep it as is. It's a beautiful memory of when you swerved to avoid hitting a cat but ended up in a ditch. That makes it your car, drive it with pride. Now, I think that's a funny analogy he's making here, but I don't love the opinion overall. Yes, cars and watches can be similar in some aspects. They both have some aspects of design and mechanics and engineering, but at the same time, I think the idea of getting scratches on both a car and a watch are very, very different. At the end of the day, a watch can be on your wrist sometimes 24/7 and experience a lot of good and bad things with you. It's something that really joins you on your journey. It can be with you during your wedding, the birth of your child, any other good or bad thing. And I think that does build character with your watch, and getting scratches and scuffs on it is just kind of part of that experience. With a car, when it gets scratches and scuffs, sometimes that means actual damage to you. You know, you could be in an accident, in some sort of life-threatening situation. And to me, it's just not the same. They don't serve the same exact purpose in your life. They're not with you in the same amount. I think these are just different things. And I do truly think that scratches and scuffs do build character on a watch. Okay, so last but not least here, hot take number 10 says, off-the-shelf movements are the best. And he goes on to basically say when a watch uses a Sellita, ETA, or a Miyota movement, or any of these very common movement platforms, it's really good because it's advantageous in terms of ease of repair and cost of repair. And I think this is a really good opinion. Yes, I would say that the technical specifications of a movement is very important. And when they are based on ETA, Sellita, Miyota movements, you know, that is going to maybe make that movement less impressive or special. But I think that does come at a cost, right? When you have a movement that is based on a very common platform, it is now easier to service, like we mentioned earlier, and it's going to be more cost efficient. I think that's a true advantage that needs to be considered when buying any watch. So I do think this is a really good opinion. I think that as a watch enthusiast, I need to remember not to be as snobby about my watches that I'm looking into, because at the end of the day, if it has a common movement, that's not a bad thing at all. I 100% understand if someone wants a very specialized movement that is very impressive compared to anything off the shelf that's only been slightly modified by that particular manufacturer. But again, that comes at a cost. Like I said, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but that is a very important factor. And I do not mind more times than most having a movement that is generally a very common one that's easy to service. So again, good opinion here. Yeah, so those were 10 hot takes that I found while perusing through the r/watch hot takes forum on Reddit. Definitely check out that forum. It's very entertaining. And let me know your opinions in the comment section down below. What do you think about the opinions I shared here today? And let me know if you have any watch hot takes yourself. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you can give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.